The bloody pacifier I found hanging from my tree belonged to Alyssa Harris, who went missing from her crib 2 nights ago. I figured it must have been Alyssa's when I saw it. But while I waited for police to arrive, I realized it could have easily belonged to Matthew Roman, or Mohammed Ahad, or maybe even Haley Davis. Over the last 4 years, they had all disappeared. Hawthorn Lane developed quite a bit of notoriety in 2015 after Matthew and Mohammed disappeared on the same night. The Romans and the Ahads lived 4 houses apart, and as far as the detectives were able to tell, the infants were abducted within minutes of each other. Both houses were securely locked, and there was no sign of a forced entry. As far as I'm concerned, though, the notoriety and rush of attention from the national news wouldn't have happened if their disappearances hadn't been on the anniversary of the 2012 abduction of Haley Davis. Haley's case was special, if it could be called such a thing. That's because on October 1st, 2013, exactly a year after she went missing, pieces of her were found stuffed into the mailboxes of every family on the street who had or were expecting children. A swarm of investigators, both local and federal, descended on our quiet suburban lane and worked around the clock for months before admitting defeat. There was no evidence, no fingerprints, no hairs, no mysterious DNA. When the media came to town in 2015 after Matthew and Mohammed went missing, the rumors started. Rumors and threats. People from all over the country decided to get involved. They felt it was their duty. They began sending harassing letters and making threatening phone calls to the single adults who lived on Hawthorn Lane. These were people who'd lived here for years. People who had grieved alongside the parents and families who had lost their children. But that didn't matter to the crazies, who'd been thoroughly brainwashed by cable news into believing the abductor had to be someone from the neighborhood. In December of 2015, a Georgia man named Alvin Stovall drove 300 miles up the coast, parked in front of Jose Pardida's house, and shot him to death when he came home from work. Alvin was certain Jose was the murderer of Haley Davis and the abductor of Matthew Roman and Mohammed Ahad. He had heard from a cable news anchor that Jose had a criminal record. That, as well as Jose's name, was all Alvin needed to justify his actions. What the anchor had neglected to mention was Jose's record was from 1977, and it was for nothing worse than being a passenger in a stolen car. Jose did his 3 months, got out on his 22nd birthday, and had been a model citizen ever since. Jose was my friend. After Jose's murder, the local police were ordered to keep a tight lid on any information pertaining to the disappearances. When Alyssa Harris was reporting missing 2 days ago, it was printed on page 4 of the local newspaper. So far, there hadn't been anyone from the major media outlets poking around. I know it's only a matter of time, though. Yesterday morning, someone who looked like a reporter was tailing the police cars when they came to investigate the bloody pacifier. For the rest of the day, my phone rang and rang. When I answered, whoever was on the other line just hung up. That alone was enough to make me worried. My name is Luis Gonzalez. I've been living alone on Hawthorn Lane for 40 years. Jose Pardida was my next-door neighbor. While I appreciate the efforts of our law enforcement officials, they weren't able to stop Alvin Stovall from murdering my friend. They aren't able to stop whoever is taking the neighborhood children. I've resorted to keeping my pistol holstered to my side all day, every day, even in my house. I know that may sound paranoid, but Look at it from my perspective. Someone is abducting and killing children on my street. An innocent man was gunned down because the news media had convinced a large group of people that Latinos are dangerous criminals. And yesterday morning, hanging from a small branch on a tree in my front yard, was a pacifier dripping with a child's blood. I can't take my chances. All that said, there's one more thing. I'm reluctant to talk about it, because it's something I saw when I was experiencing a dizzy spell from my blood pressure medication. I had blacked out from the medication before, so this could have been nothing but a hallucination. Still, these days, with everything that's going on, I think it bears mentioning. Last night, I was watching up after a midnight snack. The sink is in front of a picture window that overlooks the front yard. Since it was dark out, I couldn't see anything but the reflection of myself in the kitchen behind me. I was already feeling dizzy from my medication, but it wasn't severe enough for me to sit down, so I kept cleaning. As I washed the last dish, the overhead light blew, and the kitchen went dark. It took a moment for my eyes to acclimate, but I could soon see the neighborhood outside. And there was something across the street, opening the Richter family's mailbox. A wave of dizziness went through me, and I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself, but I'm certain what I saw was truly there. It was a pale, nude man with freakishly long legs and even longer arms that protruded from his hips rather than his shoulders. Despite him being bent down, it was obvious he was tall enough to peer through a second-story window. He paused, with the mailbox half open, then abruptly stepped away and turned around. In 2 long strides, he crossed the street into my yard. He gazed through my kitchen window with large, gray eyes. I stared back at it. A toothless mouth opened, stretching wide enough to fit a basketball. I reached for my pistol. Through the glass, I heard the sounds of infants screaming from deep inside its throat. Then its mouth shut, then twisted into a grin. Then his long, spindly legs carried him away, down the street, and into the woods. Like I said, it could have just been my medication giving me hallucinations. To be honest, I really hope that's the case.